What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Average American Podcast. This is your host, Nathan Tate, the podcast for the Average American by the Average American. Karmelo Anthony, convicted murder. Let's talk about it. So, it seems that Karmelo was convicted about 3-4 hours ago, and he was convicted of first-degree murder. Generally, first-degree murders carry 25 to life for most individuals. He was a minor at the time in which he committed the crime. Currently, it seems that he was to face anywhere from 5 years to life, but about a half hour ago, we received an update, and it says that he's been sentenced to 35 years. And I posted a TikTok video, talking about it a little bit, saying, I think that 25 years was probably appropriate. I didn't want the kid to rot away in jail forever. I believe in rehabilitation, even if the system doesn't. I don't like private prisons. I don't like that kind of stuff. So I think we should really do our best to try to rehabilitate individuals who have made poor choices. And we should not condemn them to a life of being a criminal just because it's not the same thing as George Floyd, who committed a bunch of crimes, a bunch of different crimes, petty crimes, but crimes still, been to jail for and arrested and all that kind of shit. Karmelo Anthony made one really poor decision in the moment. Does not excuse him, and we'll get into how I feel about that. The one thing that is interesting is that if a person is a minor, when they commit the crime, they cannot be given life without parole. Now, he got 35 years, but if they had given him life, he would have been eligible for parole. So now, with the 35 years, he's still eligible for parole, which I don't know necessarily how it will work for his situation. The Texas justice system's probably pretty aggressive, I imagine. So I'm not sure. I doubt it'll be like a 10 years and then it gets out kind of thing. I think people will be pretty upset about that if that's what ends up happening. There were 21 witnesses that testified, mostly teenagers from, I believe it was Meridian High School, and maybe the opposing high school. I don't remember the name of it. Several of them were black. From what I saw, 4 out of the 6 that testified from Meridian High School were black individuals who did state that what they witnessed was Karmelo Anthony being the aggressor. It's reported that Austin Metcalf and even his brother and maybe some other individuals were not, never heard about that, told him at least 15 times to leave. That's what was counted. Now, obviously, these things could be exaggerated, but let's be realistic. If you're told more than a couple, it's, you're looking for a problem. And the fact that he brought a weapon with him and had it in his backpack looks like he was looking to instigate. He was also suspended a couple days earlier for having a weapon at school. So, I'm not saying establishing a pattern, but it does seem to be a pattern. It also seems that there were a lot of people who were upset that there was no black people on the jury. I did see some reports that there were supposed to be 3 black women who were supposed to serve on the jury, but they ended up being removed due to self-perjury, that they could not give a fair trial and a fair conviction. So that's where we're at and what we're sitting with it. Obviously, social media is ablaze. I'm going to pull up some of the stuff I've pulled from social media, just some of the posts that I had pulled as I was seeing. Let me go in there. We'll start with this one. These are some comments people left on a post related to it. I don't know the exact subject of the post, but the first one is, I guess the gloves fit this time. Shout out OJ. I guess they do. Fred, fuck you, says fuck him. The sniveling little pussy is now entering the find out phase of his life. Unfortunately for Karmelo Anthony, Fred's got a great point. This is the find out phase of your life, and you just found out that 35 years is approximately what you'll be spending. Maybe 25 if you're good. So, unfortunate part of the find out phase. Brian says, what does LeBron think? I'm sure he has an opinion on this. He has one on everything else. Or Obama. Can't wait to hear from LeBron or Obama. Clearly Brian can't either. And then Chris Dents says, soon to be someone's honey bun. Well, he'll sure catch a little bit of glaze. So let's get into the next one. What do we got here? This is the post from Matt Walsh. This says, if you followed this trial and came away convinced that Karmelo is not guilty, you're either so retarded that you should be institutionalized, or you're just happy that a white guy was killed and you don't care about the facts. In either case, you have no credibility on this issue or any other issue from now on for as long as you live. And listen, Matt could say some dumb things related to the war, or he might be Ben Shapiro's lapdog from time to time. Not quite as bad as Michael Knowles, but he has his moments. But I have to agree, and I think most would agree, that it seemed pretty, cut and dry, slam it shut. He went up, instigated, created aggression, stabbed the kid, and killed him. Was it the forensic analyst? It was either forensic analyst or the doctor they brought in said that he was not savable. That the injury he sustained, he could not have been saved. So it was an immediate death, pretty much. I mean, don't get me wrong, he probably bled out for a little bit, but the damage to his heart was irreparable. So I have to agree with Matt, though. I think that if you are on the side that think this kid was innocent and it was self-defense based on all the evidence we have surrounding this case, you have invalidated yourself from the public eye and having any sort of public opinion on something that clearly is not controversial, but yet seems to be controversial to a certain demographic of individuals that, often feel victimhood, that, use victimization and play the race card to their advantage to avoid consequence. It does seem that way. I mean, it's hard to argue that that's not how it seems. So let's move on to the next one. If I can get that pulled up here. This is from another individual on there. Seems like a black man. Therefore, black people can't be and aren't racist. For the ones in my comments, look up and research what has the most... Oh, sorry, let me plug in my charger here. I don't want to die on you. Die on me. Look up and research what most have thought was history, but still going on. Red lines, white supremacy, racially profiling, and you get the point. Y'all are just evil and choose to act like you're slow. We too being improperly spelled, by the way. It should be T-O-O, not T-O. Intelligent for that. That's a tough one. In the middle of the line, we too intelligent for that. You misspelled too. That is a tough one. There are some who genuinely have no clue. This post is for you all. So I just want to point out that as a grammatical person who cares a lot about grammar, didn't use the correct term to in a line about intelligence, then does use the correct form of you all instead of y'all, which I would have never judged him for. Much harsher on the to thing. Down here he has a screenshotted definition of racism. It says racism is a belief or system that assigns value and structures opportunity based on race. It encompasses prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed at someone of a different ethnic background, as well as institutional and systemic policies that create unfair advantages for some groups and oppression for others. Okay. So the very first statement, right there at the bottom. Okay, but that definition does say that every person can be racist, ... And it says it right there in the middle. And see, they'll use the entire definition to try and make it seem like they can't because they don't have the advanced opportunities or unfair advantages. They do have some unfair advantages, by the way. But regardless, just there in the middle, it says encompasses prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed at someone of a different ethnic background, as well as. Now, I know for someone who didn't correctly use the form of to they needed, It's difficult to tell, but when you use the conjunction as well as, that means in addition to. Meaning that no matter what, both of those things can be racist, and they individually are racist descriptions. So, it's kind of crazy to post your own slam dunk, realistically. But hey, what do you expect? All right, let's move on. Get to some other stuff here. This one says, and I thought this one had the most interesting take for the situation. It says, "Let me be direct. This is not about what Austin Metcalf deserved, and it never was. He was 17 and didn't deserve to die. Thanks, we know. In all honesty, I wish Karmelo Anthony would have walked away." Yeah. Tell that to the lady who went on the news and said, "I don't know what to tell my 5 boys because you can't just walk away." So just crazy, the contradictions that come left and right. But continue. What I am saying is that death was not just a personal tragedy, or his death was not just a personal tragedy. It was a societal one. Yeah, I think society's had a pretty rough fucking reaction to this one. But usually it's in your favor. It's kind of in the other way right now. White children in America are not taught that black people have boundaries. Just want to point out that I think in 2026, everyone understands what boundaries are. Whether they be spiritual, emotional, or physical, we all understand that people have boundaries. If you have respect for an individual or common courtesy, you will do your best to adhere to boundaries. Now, no one owes you that, and you're not entitled to it. But common decency says that we all understand that boundaries exist. But continue. Physical, spatial, personal, that deserve respect. We covered that. They grow up in a culture that positions blackness as accessible, interruptible, and available. And I gotta be honest, I don't know what you mean by interruptible. I'm not sure that I can pull together what you mean there. But accessible and available are pretty much two, they're synonymous. And it is the white demographic, the young white demographic that I was part of for a really long time that has perpetuated a lot of black culture to become successful. Black music specifically, and it's become where hip hop was so big, and I really think it's kind of slowing down because the artists that are coming out just aren't that good, and I don't think that's anything to do with black culture as much as, music moves in cycles. But the reality is that, without that white sub base, these things wouldn't be happening. You need white teenagers to buy your album and listen to your music and sing your praises, things like that. We're in a country where you couldn't have elected a black president without a white voter base. So it's crazy for people to constantly bring up this societal systemic racism when it just feels like we've taken every stance to attempt to try to debunk that that's how we really feel. There are sections of every race or ethnicity that are disgraceful. White trash people generally make me upset. Like, to the point where I physically don't want to be around them, and I find it difficult to exist around them. But I find the same for every other, culture. Dirty people are dirty people. So, maybe it applies more to one demographic or the other, but we all have it in our demographic, and all of them disgust me equally. But let's continue. That tells them our space is their space. Yeah, you did that when you desegregated. So everybody's space is the same now. Don't know if you knew that or not. Our bodies are up for grabs, just like white women touching our hair without permission. Listen, couldn't tell you what that is. Seems fucking weird to me. I don't know. I don't want to touch your hair. I genuinely have an understanding of how hair texture works. I'm sure it's soft. Our no is negotiable. I'm really nothing on that. That is not an accusation leveled at a dead teenager. That is an indictment of the system that produced him. And every person currently in my comments telling me I have no business covering this case. It's literally the same entitlement but a different arena. See, this is the part that I struggle with a little bit here. So that is not an accusation leveled at a dead teenager. I would hope not. I would hope you're not putting all of this on Austin Metcalf's dead shoulders. That this is an indictment of the system that produced him, and every person currently in my comments telling me I have no business covering this case. It's literally the same entitlement, but a different arena. So this one's a little mind-boggling for me, to be honest. It definitely says more about this individual than it does anything about the system, because the fact that they think that this system that we live in produced Austin Metcalf to create a problem, and then told him that he should instigate that problem on a black teenager. That's what it feels like you're alleging here. And that doesn't make any sense at all. That's contrary to all evidence provided. Metcalf was basically minding his own business. So the system produced a teenager who minds his own business and confronts individuals when they don't respect him. I would say that system's doing pretty well if that's the kind of people it's producing. However, the system works in more ways than one, and there seems to be a lack of accountability for what the system produced on your end. The individual that did said stabbing, who, maybe listens to music that idolizes gang culture and violence and all of these things that made him feel like bringing a knife made him cool or made him strong, and having a weapon was his only defense. But the reality is that, the system that you're complaining about, your communities, the lack of accountability, the victimhood, the constant victimization, the we're never responsible for anything and it's never our fault when it is. And the race card, because I'm black, that whole thing just doesn't sit right with me. And if you're talking about entitlement, I've never met a more entitled individual that believes those types of things. So the people in your comments are probably just telling you you're stupid, and I'm inclined to agree with them. How many individuals from the black community, can do these public things and, get back to support his parents? Got $600,000. $600,000. They bought a gated community home, which is wild, first of all, and new vehicles, and gave him a public defender. If they had gotten him a good lawyer, he might have even got off. Because based on some of the evidence, they said that there was one sheriff that said that carrying the knife was legal, which I don't know enough about Texas Penal Code to know whether or not it is legal to hold the weapon on the grounds he was at. But I know it's not legal to use it and stab somebody with it when everyone's corroborating that you were an instigator who created the conflict. So, that's just asinine, in my opinion. And then the last part I have here is a really nice, subtle thing from the Babylon Bee. Nation shocked as jury rules you cannot stab someone in the heart for no reason at all. Well, I try not to kick people when they're down, but it seems like Karmelo's going to get stabbed in the ass a couple times, probably. That's just my thoughts on it. You can't commit a crime and not do the time. Although that's not true. But in this case it is. And it does seem that justice was served. And I think that it restores faith in a little bit of the institutions. To see the fact that in Henry Nowak's case, that man was sentenced to prison, as far as what I've read. And then, you have Sikh individuals coming out in that case saying that if you ban their ceremonial knives, they'll leave. Hey, I got no problem with that. I think that they should go back. I think that they're trying to replace him. But that's neither here nor there. That's for a different day. Stick around because I'm going to leave you with the last phone call that Karmelo Anthony's dad made to him earlier today. Let's go ahead and check that out. Appreciate you guys for tuning in this week, and I look forward to the next one. See ya.
Melo, can you hear me? Yeah, no, I heard what happened. Listen, good news is I'm about to get this here Cybertruck with your GoFundMe money. Bad news is you're going to jail, but, we knew that. That's why we got you a public defender. It is what it is. Hey, listen, maybe don't stab people. All right? Hey, you did this to yourself. We'll see you soon, maybe. Or not. Gotta go.